All right, Dr. WJ here, and today I want to talk about studies. If you watch any fitness YouTube channels, you've undoubtedly been just deluged with, there was a study, there was a study, there was a study, and they studied this and that. And in the end, it's almost always right that everything was the same. So light weights and heavy weights build the same mass, and lots of sets or little sets, lots of volume, lots of intensity. These studies, they always come up with the same conclusion at the end, right? That basically they're basically the same. Here's the problem. If you've been in the gym for any appreciable amount of time, you know that all of that stuff is bull, okay? They take these studies, by their very nature, they're short term, and most of the time they're what they call untrained individuals. Now, think about this. Use your brain for a second. Have some common sense here. If you take an untrained individual and you have them do anything at all, get off the couch and start moving, even the most ineffective workout initially is going to show some gains and benefits. The problem is, if you take that same person and continue to do the ineffective workout over and over and over for weeks and months and years, it plateaus and they get no benefit. We know, based on at least 60 years of experience, what actually works long term. And I get tired of these YouTube videos where they go, oh no, but there was a study done and they said heavy weights and light weights work the same, so just go do 30 reps with light weights and you're gonna build this huge muscularity and stuff. Not true at all. We know what actually works. We have had pro bodybuilders for decades and decades and decades getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what are they not doing? Super light weights with 50 to 100 repetition sets, okay? Think about, use some common sense again. If it was true that you could do lightweight, low resistance, and lots of reps and grow massive, who would have the biggest thighs in the world? Wouldn't it be marathon runners? But they don't. What do they typically have? Very little muscle mass at all, usually very skinny legs, and exact opposite of what you're probably trying to do if you're watching my videos, right? Tom Platt's most famous thighs ever, what did he typically do? Moderately heavy weights, 3, 4, even 500-pound squats for 10, 15 reps. Sometimes he would go crazy, but he was super intense, super volume, but again, not light weights, not necessarily heavy weights either. And that does frustrate me a lot of times when they're like heavy weights or light weights, as if there's just two things, okay? I think of heavy weights as like weights that you can do 1 or maybe 2 reps and then you can't lift it again. And I think of light weights as like 15 to 20 reps before you kind of tire out, or more reps than that. But they never seem to mention what's the most effective, which is moderately heavy weights that allow you to do somewhere, if we stretch it out, we'll say maybe 6 to 20 reps before failure. If we start really focusing in on what actually is working for muscle mass, we're really probably looking at 8 to 12 reps as the ideal point of failure. So whatever weight is heavy enough that you can do 8 but not 9, or 9 but not 10, or 10 but not 11, or 11 but not 12, and so on. That's where you're growing your best muscle mass, typically, most people. Obviously, there's going to be outliers. It's like a bell curve, right? In the middle is where everybody, the vast majority, are going to see their benefits, and then you're going to have the outliers that go, I do 30 rep sets all day long, and I have 24-inch biceps. Yes, it can happen, you know. And then you see some people that are doing 1, 2, 3, 4 reps, and they look like a pro bodybuilder. I don't know. But those are outliers, they're genetics, whatever they've got going for them, it works for them. But most of you and most of us, we're looking at 8 to 12-ish. I think a 15 is more endurance, definition type of thing. And again, I'm not saying that you should only do sets of 8 to 12. I'm not saying that at all. One of the things you learn over time is what Weider called the instinctive principle. And one of the other channels, I watched their video talk about it, he clearly had no clue what that was. I don't think he's old enough to know. The instinctive principle is listening to your body and training it based on what your body is telling you to do. So, for example, I might have the best intentions of going to the gym and putting, 135 on the bar for a warm-up set, 225 for some working sets, 315 for some working sets. That might be what I intended to do before I got to the gym. When I got to the gym, I realized best I could do was 95 pounds and just crank out reps. That's all I had in the tank for whatever reason. Just, it is what it is. That's the instinctive principle, and that's where you learn, like, hey, today is a 20 rep set day, 5, 10 sets of 20 reps, and that's just all I've got. And then there's other times where you go and you go, I feel super strong, and you got the 300 plus pounds on the bar, and it feels light. And knowing when is the instinctive principle, so you don't hurt yourself. Anyway, in conclusion, when you see a video and it's a fitness influencer and the first thing they're saying is, there was a study, I guarantee you, if you look at the actual study, it doesn't say anything at all conclusive. It's just a ridiculous waste of time. Short term and untrained, even if you took someone like me and you put me in a study and you had me doing 50 repetition sets for 3 weeks, let's say, and at the end they measured and miraculously I would probably have some growth, because I have not done 50 repetition sets and I couldn't tell you how long. So my body would be shocked by doing 50 repetition sets, and it would grow initially, but not long term. Long term, we know it works. It's moderate weights, moderate reps, basically to failure. We'll talk about failure in another video that deserves its own video, to be honest. Anyway, stay strong.